This will be part 2 because that was already like an hour long. This will be the part 2 to the first segment. So that was kind of talking about the history of like what I went through. And now the more, not like just like the resolution, right? That was the problem. I'm going to talk about the resolution aspect. So maybe a little bit, I might have to tie in. And I'm only using my situation, even though there's like 50 million other situations you can, because we all go through grief, anxiety, tension, stress, trauma, fear, all those things, right? But I will say, growing through what you go through, coping with change, adversity, and uncertainty, right? Is that what I said? Right? Change, adversity, and uncertainty. That's what I was going to title it. How do you do that? I don't think there's no proper recipe, right? Because everyone's going to go through something, and we're all going to, you have to heal on your, and that's oh my gosh, when I hear about people like, oh, you have to heal, like you need to, if someone says to anybody, to me, it's so insensitive. If someone says, whether it's a family member, a friend, if they're like, get over it, if anyone tells you, get over it, like move on, they're not being empathetic to you. I don't care if it's a parent, a father, mother, brother, sister, cousin, uncle, boss, friend, lawyer, anybody. If they say move on, get over it, they're not being empathetic to you, and they're more probably gaslighting you or just ignoring your feelings. And empathy basically is when you put someone else's, like you consider someone, you put yourself in someone else's shoes and you consider their needs, right? So people that are apathetic, APATHE, APATHETIC, apathetic, are ones that they lack remorse, they lack empathy, right? The absence of empathy is apathy. So if someone can't resonate with what you went through, they're apathetic, and they're probably not somebody you want to keep around or have around in your life, right? From what I've learned, and it's a very loaded topic. Like what I'm talking about is a very, like to condense it down to an hour long, I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to. And it's gonna probably be like 2:30 before and I'm supposed to wake up at 6 to like give Bonnie her medication. But I will say that yes, we all go, trauma is subjective because we all go through our own experiences, right? We all perceive our reality in an own way, right? So, but the universal aspect, which shout out to BetterHelp because they actually have a trauma support group where they have actually people that just come in and all discuss all these things or whatever together, because it is a universal idea of going through something hard and challenging and it being tough and hurting you, psychologically, emotionally, because there's a psychosomatic connection response. Which is, I was gonna, maybe this will be a part 3. This might be like a 3-part video thing. Healing it to feel it, right? Which I might have to, I was gonna do a separate video for that. I might just talk about it now because how do you cope with change, adversity, and uncertainty? Healing it to feel it. First of all, never let anyone tell you how you should feel. Healing is a process. It is not linear. There are days where I was like, oh, I'm so in this. Like, I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to do my yoga. Like, literally, I was like, I'm going to go buy a planner. I'm going to do my little chart. Like, because I love doing lists. I'm so big on pros and cons lists. I'm so big on, like, bullet point to-do lists. I'm big on compartmentalizing things because that's on my brain. I'm a visual person. Like, I'm a kinesthetic person. Like, I'm a visual person, meaning like I have to write things down and then I visually, it helps me to compartmentalize things and be more organized that way. So having a calendar, having a to-do list, bullet points, post-its, things like that help me stay organized. Where some people maybe don't need that, but I do. But there were days like I was so ambitious. I was like, I'm gonna get through this. I got this. I'm very self motivated. Like I will literally, I'm like my own motivational speaker. I'll be like, and I think I've always had that with me. I didn't realize it. I didn't have to enact that or employ that until I went through this stuff. But I basically had to just like, I was like, okay, because you have to be your own advocate. I learned something else. No one else is going to be your advocate. I'm sorry to like tell you, no one, nobody. You think whether it's a police officer, like I'm just being very like it's transparent. If you don't have proof, like forget about it. The police and as rightly so, right? Because if you don't have any much to go off of, they're not. How are they going to do it? Like, what are they going to do, right? They'll just be like, and if you're not physically harmed, it's like it's kind of hard. You have to be like physically harmed, you know. You would think though, like if you walk into a police precinct, having your eyes like I was I remember there were times I'd be walking in there, bawling my eyes out, like please, you know. And I didn't can't say I didn't really get. I thought I was going to get more support in that sense, but I didn't. So I try to make peace with it. People can only do what they can do, and they escalated it further into with another agency, and I was like, it's in God's hands. I can't. There's not much really I can do, um, in that respect. So you know, you do the best you can. But no one's going to advocate for you except you. Nobody. I don't care. Like even let's say you get diagnosed with cancer, you're going to have maybe a cancer patient navigator, but that's their job. They're employed to do that, to be a support to you. Like as a child life specialist, I took it a step further. I literally did. That's when they say, you know, when you have to the boundaries and you have to have a therapeutic when you have a therapeutic relationship with a patient, there's that professional boundary, right? You never want to be too overly invested because then you can have compassion fatigue and burnout, which probably is best. You know, child life was I am still a child life specialist. I'm certified by trade, but it's a very emotional, just like nursing, any service oriented industry where you're saving someone's life and you're helping heal their body or their mind, it's emotionally taxing. So you have to be very, very resilient and you have to have really good boundaries. And me, I'm very like, I like, if I could pour my heart out and like help save the world, I would like, but I can't. So, you know, I could try, but you know, so, yeah, so but healing it to feel it. I never repressed my emotions once. I was very much like I'm almost too transparent. Like I literally wear my heart on my sleeve. Like if I'm feeling like poop, I will let someone like I will say like if I need to I will cancel plans with someone and say, hey, like I've had therapy appointments where I'm like, hey, I've slept through it or like not or slept through it. I didn't set an alarm or I wasn't feeling well. Because the thing is, I always wanted to be because I had really good self awareness, like emotional self awareness. I always like at a job, if I wasn't at my optimal best, like I literally, because of the stuff I went through, I resigned from a position at a hospital that was like second. So there's Boston Children's, and then there's like this other hospital, and that was like the premier, like it's the premier hospital for kids. Like people fly from like Qatar or like Dubai, right, to come there or Kuwait or like wherever, you know, Russia or whatever, you know, to get the medical care they need because they specifically focus on really complex pediatric medical cases. So I felt very fortunate to be there, but I had to, unfortunately, I resigned from there because I wasn't focused. I was not present in the moment. I wasn't present for my team. And I knew that they deserved better. And I was like, I wouldn't want, if I had this person on my team, I wouldn't want me there because I wasn't focused. I was more preoccupied with trying to solve the mystery of what was going on with my situation. And so I took it upon myself. I said, hey, I'm gonna, you know, and that's kind of when I went through a year of not working, and I took time off for myself, which I recommend, even if anybody needs, like, if, I always recommend someone to take like a gap year or a self-care year, because let me tell you, everything you thought you knew about from your childhood, everything you tend to yourself, you bloom and tend and fertilize that garden of life inside you, the spiritual one, not the physical one. I mean, you could tend to the physical one too, because I did do that. And it was so crucial to me. It did, I mean, I did go through my savings, a lot of it, but it was very imperative to me that I had to get my mind straight in terms of like, I was coherent. There's nothing in terms of like sanity. I was sane and I still am sane, but um, I wasn't at my best. So, but my point is saying heal it to feel it, meaning heal, like, oh, no, sorry, not heal it to feel it to heal it, meaning feel the emotions, because emotions are, it's energy. That's what Ralph Smart said. This was where I first heard it, because I don't want to say I was the one who came up with it. He came up with it, because I need credit where credit's due. He's the one that said emotions are energy in motion, emoting. When you emote, you are being emotionally expressive, right? So when you're angry, be angry, right? In Star Wars, there's a quote. Yoda says, was it fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering, right? So you never want to you want to ride the wave of emotion, but there's another quote that says emotions are like waves, let them pass through you. And they literally have a picture, it's a little picture of a dude riding a wave, and like there's a hole, and like in the wave, and like he's like riding through, I don't know, surfing. And it's true, you need to ride that wave, you need to feel it to heal it. Because if you don't feel it, you're going to end up with a lot of repressed emotions. And if you don't deal with those thoughts and those behaviors and emotions, they're going to basically be expressed overtly. What do I mean by overtly? Outwardly, right? Meaning someone could get so angry that they can lash out and hurt somebody, like physically, right? Because imagine you have all this anger inside you, and you're like, where is it going to go, right? You have this anger, and then you don't know where it's going to go, and you have this fear and anxiety, and it's debilitating, and you're someone maybe that's like really stoic and like just it's going to explode. You're going to end up you're going to blow up in front of someone, and you're going to just go crazy and start spewing out profanities and things, and that you're going to regret, or you can actually act like people could hurt somebody. So that's why I say you feel it to heal it. Because there's people that, oh my God, what's it called? Was it the passive aggression? People that, I forgot what it's called. It's people, reactive abuse. It's what it's called. Reactive abuse is when you can wreck relationships. You can have a relationship with somebody, and let's say that person means well, and because you are so pent up or paranoid or wound up, you may end up projecting your feelings from past trauma and abuse on them, because it's called reactive abuse, because maybe someone hurt you in the past. Like let's say you're a victim of narcissist abuse, right? Narcissistic abuse. And you have someone that has good intentions and good meaning towards you. And then because you went through abuse, you're reactive towards them, meaning you're more in a heightened state of like, I'm going to react towards that, person. So that's why I say you feel it to heal it. So that's that. And then also, like I said, you are your own advocate, meaning you can have the best therapists. They're going to be there to guide you. They're going to be there to assimilate and synthesize and give you a proper diagnosis and maybe give you a coping plan. But it's ultimately up to you if you want to incorporate or utilize those coping strategies they impart to you. And more often than not, what I've learned is really therapists, good ones, really end up helping. It's almost like when you're in education, when you're a teacher, there's this there's this theorist that I loved. It's a learning theory. So Lev Vygotsky, the Russian theorist. And basically there's this thing called the zone of proximal development, and there's called scaffolding. And it's this idea, you're like guiding the individual to help. You're not taking them by the hand, and you're not like, okay, this is what you need to do, right? You're allowing the participant or the person to come to their own conclusions, to learn on their own, right? And then you're building upon that with minimal, like, guided supervision, if that makes sense. So they're kind of like they're not holding your hand, but they're helping guide you, right? They build scaffolding, they build upon the previous, so that's kind of what I've learned is like the really good therapists, they do listen to you, but they also help like give you like, hey, like, okay, what if we try this on? Or how do you think you got to that conclusion? Or why? They help you gain insight independently on your own, right? So I think that's what makes a really good therapist. But really though, you're the one that has to decide, okay, am I going to take the steps necessary to heal myself? Because you're going to have to, like, there's going to be moments where you're going to feel so lost and so helpless and so hopeless. I will never forget at the peak of when I was going through all this stuff. When I was waitressing, and no one knew this. I think there was one girl that I worked with that she knew what I was going through, because I actually maybe cried in front of her, and maybe a busser. I think I cried in front of a busser as well. But when you're in the service industry or hospitality industry, you can't. I consider the floor because when I did theater, there's the fourth wall, there's a stage, and you perform and dance or whatever. Or not in theater, just dance recitals. You have the stage, right? So when you're performing, you're doing a dance, like you go out on stage, and there's the backstage. So I consider when I did serving, the main dining room was the stage, and the backstage was the back of house, the behind the scenes, right? So, which there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes in serving. There's people who like talk mad shit about the guests, and they complain, or like I've seen servers like hit computer screens because they're so pissed. You have to have a lot of patience and composure when you're a server because people can treat you so like a dog, like you're nothing. But anyways, that's not the point. There was a point I remember when I was so scared that, and it makes me going back to this. There's moments where I still need to like heal from things because I go back to the moment and I'm like, man, this really sucks. It was like maybe a Saturday night. Saturdays were booming. They were the busiest nights, more than Friday, right? And it was just like constant tables, boom, 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 go, 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 cleaning the table, sit a table, clean a table, go, deliver the food, do the specials, da da da, manicure the other table, set the table, reset it, bus it. It was just constant, motion that you didn't really have a moment. And then it all culminated and all just like it was probably a panic attack. Panic attacks are very scary because you feel like you can't breathe, you feel like you're suffocating, you feel like you're going to lose oxygen. And your nervous system just goes haywire. And I was prescribed, I don't mind saying it. I mean, I don't know if this is going to be good for like future employment. I don't think anyone's watched my videos yet. Maybe they will down the line, but like future employment, they'll be like, oh, this girl, but I can't, I lived through it and I overcame it. So, but if I'm doing this because I want to help other people who are having a rough time going through things, to give them the the coping skills to be able to overcome it, because no amount of therapy, whatever, I lived it. So hopefully someone that's near, like they're hopeless or hopeless, like there's light at the end of the tunnel. So I remember just one day, it all hit me like a freight train, and I cried, I went into the bathroom, and I locked the door, and if I cry, I apologize. It brings me back to that moment. And I used to be very much a perfectionist, so I never wanted to look like even though I was emotionally expressive and I wear my heart on my sleeve, but when it comes to work, I don't mess around with that. Like, I will not, if I don't feel good, yes, I'll tell a supervisor, but I'll usually, if it's a professional matter, I will try to carry on and push through, right? Because that's work. But I remember going to the bathroom and like, um, the two things that kept me I remember I would turn on and I would watch the video from Zach, this kid, the one wearing the shirt, because this is from his foundation. And I remember I sat on the floor of the bathroom, and like, it's like, imagine everyone else is fine around you, right? Everyone's fine around you, and they're all doing their thing, they're living life, whatever, and you're dealing with, you're just petrified, like you feel alone because you feel scared, you feel isolated, no one understands what you're going through, right? You have people telling you, oh, it didn't happen, you need to see a psychiatrist, you need to go to a psychologist, go get a therapist, let it go, so and so doesn't care, he's not even thinking, whatever. But I literally I remember sitting on and I was like, and mind you, I didn't have that much time. Within the time that I was, maybe I didn't have a table or whatever. And I think I tag team a lot with somebody. Like, I was pooling with someone, which is when you team up with another coworker or whatever, and they manage the section with you. So you work as a team. But I just remember being in the bathroom, like, defeated, dejected. But the thing is, I was not so defeated but I was determined. I didn't want to let the circumstances get the best of me. So I I remember watching Zach's video. Like I would watch it on repeat, and I was like, man, if this kid could go through this, I can do this. You know, because it's different. Because when you're told you have cancer, it's different, right? You're told, he was literally told, oh, you have 6 months or a year to, you know. And I'm sorry, I feel like crying. It's so horrible because it's like, imagine you're told, like, imagine you're faced with your own mortality, right? And you have to like, you want to go to college, you have these hopes and these dreams and these goals, and he had a beautiful girlfriend, and it's like, and I go, okay, if he can go through this, I can get through whatever it is that I'm, you know, this situation I'm going through. And it seemed horrible because I'm telling you, like, what I was going through, imagine having your whole community, and I'm being honest, I wish I could have the proof, gang up on you. That's what it felt like. I felt like, and I was a victim. I don't like to sit in victim mentality, but I was like, imagine everyone just be like ridiculing, belittling you, talking stuff about you and things that are not true, and just making your life really hard. And you're someone that has a really good heart and only wishes well for people, and people try to like break you down. People don't even know, and how it turns into like one person, it grows. And your community, right? This is where I was raised, and I brought, you know, it really messes with your psyche. Um, but I said, you know what? I'm like, I'm not. This is. I'm gonna figure it out. I was like, I'm determined, and I go, if this kid can go through this. I mean, they literally told him it's either we cut your pelvis off or, um, you know, and to get rid of it because he had it spread and metastasized everywhere. So see, this is why I go child life because I feel it's like I didn't have the cancer, but like I feel like I'd be living through what he's going through, and I just for a moment and sitting in a hospital room being told that and figuring out what you're going to do with your life. So I was like, if he can do that, then I can go through bullying or cyberbullying, whatever, you know. And people don't think take cyberbullying too seriously or hacking because it's like it's just technology stuff, but it really it messes because when someone hacks you basically, which is like which is I don't really mention it too, which is kind of what happened to me. That means that they can like they have access to everything. It's a really daunting feeling, especially if someone stalks you, because that means they know where you are at all times. They can figure out, you know, what you're doing, where you're going. It's daunting. Like it literally is daunting. Um, and then someone else told me something else that this other person later on a few years after, like when I moved, there was a situation where I had a driver, my friend and I, we were in the car and we were going to drive to New York, and the guy that drove us, he said that there's other things too people do when they unfortunately put Spire or whatever in your phone and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my god, that really threw me through a loop. So I'm like, no way. I'm like, no. I was like, that's like stuff that on Dateline 2020. That's like not gonna happen to me. But it does happen. People do get like kidnapped and trafficked and stuff like that. I don't know if I can say that. Can I say that? I don't know if I can say that. So um yeah, but I just remember sitting. That was a low point. I sat in the bathroom and I watched Zach's video. I remember it was in my, and mind you, I had like we had a long server apron. I was sitting in the server apron. I had my safe work shoes, which are like kind of like these big. They were not clogs, but they're like no. I had my sneakers. Sorry, they were sneakers. My work safe shoes were like lace up sneakers. And I remember just sitting on the floor, like I was like, is this really happening to me, God? And I'm someone, I'm so steadfast in my faith. Like, my faith, I've always been connected to God and the divine. And I go, but why? I go, how, God? I'm like, but people are good. Like, I thought, you know, um, I'm the kind of person, like, what's the movie in Cinderella where she says, she saw the world not how it was, but how it could be. And that's how I see the world. I know that there's a lot of mean people, whatever, but I always say, I see the world differently. I see the world with possibility and hope and promise, even though I'm not being like rose colored glasses type of thinking, but that's how I am. Because I always think of what's possible, right? Um, Nothing is not impossible to me. So um, I said, if this kid can go through it, I can go through it. And then I remember, which if I know politically, there's like people who would, you know, the backlash because people don't like that, whatever. But First Lady Michelle Obama, she said, um, when they go low, you go high. And I kind of, I can't tattoo that, like that whole thing on my quote, but I really, there's a necklace that I wanted to get. It's basically two arrows. One points up and one points down, and it looks kind of like this. It looks like, it's the best way to look at it. Like, but it's a lot cuter than that. But basically, there's a necklace on Amazon that's like that, and I think it's sold out. But I wanted it because I wanted to get like either a tattoo of it, like arrows, one going down with, because it's like, it reminds me, when they go low, you go high, and that what that means to me is like, no matter how low people stoop or how hard they try to hurt you, you never want to stoop to their level, because you're just going to be, when you take the high road, it's not to say, and there's the thing, it's not to say that you allow yourself to be abused and be a doormat, because that is something. If you say, oh, if you sit back and you don't say anything, like you're going to be a doormat, it's kind of like, I equate it to, my thing is like, but when in the Bible, and I'm not a Bible buff, I don't not claim to be a Bible buff, I know I should probably read the Bible a little bit more, but there is that story about where Jesus, they were doing like tax collecting in a church or the house of worship or whatever, and he came in and he's like, I don't know if I can say flip. Well, he like flipped the tables over or whatnot, right? So um, I kind of equate it to that, because there are moments where you're gonna have to dig your heels in and be like, you can't touch me, because people bully people, because, and a therapist told me this, they bully people, they pick on people because they pick on the people that they know won't fight back or are more vulnerable, right? Because you see, like, if you see a macho man walking down the street, right, and he's like, right, they're not gonna mess with him, they're not gonna F with him, because he's like, like smash, like Hulk smash. But me, I'm walking down the street, and like, if I'm riding a bike, I used to have this really cute pink bicycle with a basket, like, um, but me, it's like, okay, yeah, we can pick on her, and I have been a victim of bullying kind of my whole life for some reason. I don't know why. Don't know why. Um, and that's so mean. Like, I would never want to pick on anybody. Like, and there was one time in my life when I was in middle school, there was one girl, because that I had a group of friends, and we weren't really super popular, but like, it was my group of friends. We were our own clique in a sense, and there was a girl that was kind of like, to this day I look back and I go, man, I basically didn't want to be friends with her, because she was looked at as like the nerdy whatever, and I'm like, it's so funny, because an adult, I'm like a nerdy an adult now, so, um, but, um, yeah, so, but anyways, going back to, so when they go low, you go high, it's the kind of idea that, um, no matter how low someone goes, you always take the high road. You don't fight fire with fire. You you act with grace, humility, civility. Civility is important, because if you act out of, because the point is, when a bully does something to you and they provoke you, and or anyone, like in my case it was bullying, whatever, and cyberbullying, hacking, whatever. I've learned that when someone bullies someone, and I've learned to manage it a lot better, they want to trigger you, right? They want to trigger you and poke you and prod you where it hurts, at the parts that they know that they can annoy you, right? Um, So, and they'll hit below the belt. Like, they'll try to say something that they know will provoke you or because they're trying to get a reaction out of you, right? That's the psychology behind it. But you don't want to turn cold and jaded and bitter and be like, I'm going to cut everyone off and be a stone cold BITCH or DICK. You want to be like, and sometimes, yeah, you have to assert yourself and say, you can't mess with me, because people mess with people because they think they're vulnerable. And it's true. That's why people do it. Because I don't look like I'm gonna hurt anybody. I don't look threatening. But compared to someone who, let's say, might look like the Hulk, they're not gonna mess with that dude. They're gonna mess with the girl who's like with my pink backpack walking down the street with my AirPods on, like, So it's usually people that are very egotistical or have like really big egos that pick on other people. Because people that are humble and down to earth, they're not like, how can I conspire and plot against humanity? Oh my goodness, like, they're not gonna do that. They're just they're living their life. They're contributing to society. They're growing, they're learning. But people who are on the other end of the spectrum, who are like, yes, I'm going to, it's very creepy and sinister, because it happens. People are like that. I'm realistic in that sense. But change, adversity, uncertainty. This, I guess, goes with the adversity part. When they go low, you go high. Um, Specifically, change. How do you cope through change? Change is inevitable. Sometimes things have to fall apart so better things can come together. And whether it's in an organization, in a relationship, a family, sometimes things have to fall apart. I remember in my family, when my mother and my grandmother, they once had, they always kind of butted heads. There was friction between them. But I had to witness one day when I was at my grandmother's house, they went at it. Like, they argued for a bit there. And words were exchanged, not so nice words. And I witnessed it, but nothing physical, no physical altercations or domestic disturbance like that, but just words. Like it was an argument. It was a heated argument. Ended up with me, my mom going, "Come on, we're leaving right now," and that was it. And we got in the car. We drove back home. I forgot what exactly it was about, but there's a point to this. Because all the things that were being kept in the surface, beneath the surface, right? Like different things that they were implied, but they were never said, right? Between the two of them, I guess. They finally, because they had that final blow up and they hashed it out, they actually, because of that situation, their whole dynamic became better because they talked through it. And yeah, it was heated, but because they had that heated discussion, they were able to overcome it and come to a resolution. And their whole, yeah, they didn't talk for a few days, but then they finally, and they're like, the conflict resolution happened and the dynamic changed for the better. And change in itself is hard, right? Change is never easy. Like moving to a new city, that's hard. You feel like especially here, like I moved to Vermont, I feel like a fish. I could literally probably do a docu-series. A Latina moves to Vermont, chaos ensues. A Latina, and and I always wonder, because in my spare time I'll put on like bachata music on my little Alexa little sphere of, oh no, I said her name and now she awakens. But she's in the, I have it in the corner and I play bachata music and I'm up. In Miami, Miami life is very different. Miami never sleeps. It's like Vegas. It never sleeps, especially Miami Beach, South Beach, Las Olas, Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, all those places. The nightlife is alive. Nightlife there's a whole new meaning, except like Fort Myers. Naples, Fort Myers, not so much. Cape Coral, St. Cloud, yeah, not too much. But more southern Florida, it's awake. There's La Carreta, there's Versailles. You go to Calle Ocho, there's like boom, it's life. So coming here, which there was a reason why I came to Vermont specifically, was because I wanted to get away from city life. I needed time to collect my thoughts, to step away, so I can process things. And I did. That was on purpose. And it's funny. Let me tell you, for dating, unless you're okay with meeting Canadians, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to snort, but there is not much. You have New York, there's Rhode Island, New Hampshire. Unless you take that radius and you boop 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 extend it, you are not going to get that many people. You're going to get like a teeny tiny, and the people you will get are probably not looking for anything serious, which is okay. Some people, you do the casual thing. I did the casual thing for like a few seconds, for like a hot minute there. It's fun, it's exciting because you have someone there and you're like, ooh, they're cute and it's sexy, whatever. But ultimately having a satisfying, like, strong connection with somebody, I think is more like, I don't know, that's just me. I know people do polyamory nowadays and they're like, I want to have two relationships and like whatever. I'm not really, I know some people, they think that there's more than one soulmate out there for you, which is probably true. But to me, it's like, if you're making the commitment to somebody, you're like, and not married, but like, you're like, I'm going to choose you and I'm going to choose to be loyal to you and have fidelity, then you do that. And it's harder for some people than most. Some people need to sow their oats and be like, I need to have 5 women in my life to feel special. And that's what they do. But my point is, Vermont is very like, I know I'm getting off on a side tangent, but it is not like conducive for, like, you're not like, especially the city I'm in, apparently there's like only 6,000 people in the city, I think. Wait, Alexa, what's the current population of St. Albans, Vermont? Just curious what she says.
The population of St. Albans, also called St. Albans, Vermont, is
6,000. 6,900 people. 69. I'm stupid. I'm sorry. I'm so. There's like moments where I say like things and I'm like a child. But anyways, um, Vermont is not really, yeah. So, but I moved here with the intent to be away from city life because I didn't want to be around people, and I just wanted quiet. I wanted peace. Um, Country life, farm life is very different from. There's like perks of it, but being, if you're a single 33-year-old woman, and I'm someone who loves to dance or whatever, like I said, the Miami life, like I play bachata music, and I'm like, I wonder sometimes if someone's walking by, if they hear my Latino, I'll go from like listening to Latino, who is it now? I got into, there's the Bad Bunny songs that I really like from his new album, but then I'll play Bruno Mars. I'm like, they either think this girl has like dance parties every night or really likes music. But anyways, there's a point to that where I was saying, but change, right? Coping with change, like moving to a new city, feeling like a fish out of water. Anytime. And that's like for anyone. Like if someone moved to Colorado, if you move to Arizona, if you move to New York, if you move to another country, you're always going to feel like a fish out of water because, like unless you're like super comfortable and you're adaptable and you know how to, you make friends easily and you're very social, then sure. But more often than not, that is not how, you have to adapt and adjust, and it takes time. So, but change is inevitable. I think there's a lot of growth in change. I think there's like you can learn a lot, right? It's uncomfortable. There's that quote, becoming comfortable learn to become comfortable in the uncomfortable. And I feel like I've had to do that. I literally gained I've gotten a crash course in learning how to do that. Like literally, like I've had to constantly assess and reassess, deconstruct and reconstruct myself, start over, take 10 steps back, 5 steps forward, 2 steps back, 6 steps forward. It constantly, I feel like there's constantly this shift I've had to make over and over and over again. Which I wanted to do a video about handling rejection, not like in relationships, just in life in general. So I know this is probably not good for you at all. It's so good. It's horrible, but it's so good. It has like 25 grams of sugar. Yay! I always wonder if I'm pre-diabetic, and I'm like, I'm just contributing to disease. But whatever. It is what it is. I'm going to drink it, and that's that. I'm probably low-key addicted to sugar, though. Straight up. Anyways, I don't need to go. I just got ravioli juice through the olive oil in my hair. Or it felt like it. I felt like I had basil flying to my hair. Anyways. What was I going to say? Train of thought. Focus. Change. Coping with change. I think once you're in the change and you've experienced it, I think that's when you can start going, okay, what's my game plan? What am I gonna do? Because I'm very much a person, like I have lists, calendars, things like that. That's what helped me. But the emotional aspects of coping through change, not as easy. Right? Because you're constantly having, like I said, you're like reinventing yourself and learning to adapt, and a human can only withstand so much change and rejection and reinvention in their life. But you look at it, but a good example of that would be the Holocaust. In the Holocaust, you had people. I mean, I equate it almost similar to what I went. It's not the Holocaust. I mean, kind of. There's other aspects that are very Holocaust-esque, very similar to what happened to them happened to me, which I'm not going to get into. But it's similar in the sense that they imagine having your whole life stripped away from you, almost make it taken, like everything that you knew about humanity, it gets ripped away from you, and people you thought you can trust to protect you actually are end up being the ones to hurt you. Um, so, and they had everything. Those that were, it wasn't people who were just Jewish. There were people that were Polish, maybe Irish, all these different people from all walks of life. Maybe Ukrainian, Russian, whatever. They were all concentration camp prisoners or victims, and they had to have their heads shaved. They were all given a uniform. They were emaciated. They were treated like shit, like nothing, and then killed. Put in an oven and burned. And I mean, it's heinous to think about that. But my point is that they lived, they adapted. I mean, to think every day having to live on a wooden, in the freezing cold temperatures or heat, on a wooden just plank to sleep on with no shower, barely any food. I mean, you wonder how people did that, but they did. So people can do that. People can go through cancer. And like, you know what? I can go through what I went through. But sometimes I think with change, you adapt. You learn to adapt. You become flexible. I like this, and then it leads me to the next thing, which is adversity. What I like to equate it to, with, I look at adversity, and this might sound silly, but I look at adversity, which is something that's, I need to struggle, strife, pain. When you think about it, I compare it to sandpaper, right? Because sandpaper is gritty. It has this really gritty texture. It's not smooth. Um, it's usually used to shape things and whittle things down to become smooth, right? Like wood or something. I remember when I was interviewing a lot for different positions in hospitals, they'd say, "Tell me about a time you overcame a challenge." And something that I like to say is, we are perfectly imperfect creatures, right? We are works in progress. I think we come to Earth to learn. I think Earth is a school. And we have, metaphorically, figuratively speaking, we have rough edges. I have rough edges. We have things about us that need to be tended to, right? Even stuff like, I probably still have stuff I need to tend to. And if you think that you're done learning in life, you are sorely mistaken. Anyone that's like, I'm done learning, even if you're like 90, you're like, I'm done, you're like, nope, you've lived a long time, but there's probably still stuff you could learn. I look at adversity as the sandpaper that comes along to smooth and polish out our rough edges, right? Because if you think of a stone, right, or you think of like a piece of wood, and you think of like when people use like, oh, what's it called, like the razor, like to cut the wood or just to shape it into the way they want it to be, or sculpture, right? You get a scraper and you mold it and you morph it and you polish, you smooth out those edges, and that's kind of what I equate adversity to being, right? Adversity comes along, you go through this really horrible, arduous, tragic thing, right? You question everything you knew about life. You're like, oh my God, my whole worldview crumbles, right? Perspective gone, shattered. And then you get yourself back up again, and then you slowly have to reinvent yourself, right? In bits and pieces. Because the world you thought you once knew, it completely, right? It shattered. Like, for me, everything that I knew, everything. Even, I'm telling you, my finance, which I don't know if I should say this on YouTube, but no one's watched it yet, so I don't think they're going to watch it for a while. But everything, I'm talking, I had a lot of money saved from a lot of hard work and blood, sweat, and tears from you know, um, working as a child specialist, working as a server, long hours, coming home late at night. I taught kids yoga on the side. Sorry, my lips are very dry and chapped. Um, I um, I taught adults yoga. I babysat. At one point. I was babysitting for like 4 or 5 families at a time in a week. Um, I was a camp counselor. I was a teacher with kids. And I'm not saying I was, by no means, I was not perfect, but I gave my all. That's one thing I can say. I can't say I was like super knowledgeable. I wasn't like the top performer or whatever, but like I gave my all. And I think that was evident in my passion and that I exuded outwardly. and demonstrated, and within that I was able to produce good results. But it's just like a concentration camp. I had everything stripped away from me. And when I mean everything, I mean like, and mind you, I have a master's degree in developmental psychology. It's from an online school, but still, like, I did the papers, I did the essays, I did assessments. I had a thesis, kind of, thesis. Not so big a dissertation, but I did do a thesis. Um, I went to professional development conferences. Went to healthcare professional conferences. I mean, I was in it. I was a working professional. Um, and now I'm, struggling to find a job that just pays maybe minimum wage, and after having a gap in my employment, people look at you. Either people are going to have an empathetic eyes and be like, okay, what's her story? And I'm going to give her a chance. Or they're going to be like, ooh, whoa, 3 months here, 4 months there. But they don't know the story behind that. They don't know what I went through, you know. But I always say if someone's going to give someone a chance, it's like, what's her face? The Wonder Woman that Gal Gadot, she was told no so many times. And then boom, she gets Wonder Woman. Boom! Freaking gorgeous woman. Like, whatever. So anyways, what was I going to say? The sandpaper. The adversity is the sandpaper, and then you go through this stuff in rejection, and it slowly, you may think, frustration. It's like, I look at, to me, as like pain is my rocket fuel. Like, if someone tells me no, I'm like, okay, watch me. That's the kind of person I am. I've noticed I'm very determined, I'm very resilient and tenacious. Like, if you tell me no, I'm gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna figure out how to do it, and not like in a bitchy way, but just like I want to prove to myself like I can do it. Now there will be days which I want to go back to, about healing, feeling it to heal it. There will be days where you're going to be like, I am so on board. I am so gung ho. I'm going to, boom, I'm going to tackle everything. Like, I literally have a to-do list here, and I still the same. Well, I did Bonnie's vet visit, so that I can take that off the list. But I have to go to my pharmacy to pick up some medication. I have to go to the post office. This is done. I have to call something else, and there's things that I haven't done, need to attend to, that I have on my to-do list. But my point is that if you just start, you'll get somewhere, right? And to not put so much pressure on yourself if you are healing through something really tragic or whatnot, because healing is not linear. But the adversity itself, you have to look at it like, and I can't speak, there's people, like when you work in a hospital, you're a nurse or you're a doctor, an employee, and you do direct like clinical patient care, you witness so much. Like I've gotten so much perspective working in a hospital, because I've seen, there was a girl, I forgot her name, Tamaya, sweetest girl. She was a volunteer for the hospital, but she also was a patient, and she was a playroom volunteer, and she was, I don't want to say confined to a wheelchair, but she was, I hate to use the word handicap as well, because it just makes you feel, it makes you sound like you're less than, like you're not worth as much, like you're not as worth as the same as a human that could ambulate or is mobile, like a typical functioning human, right? So I'm very careful with my words. I know handicap is a word, because if you have a handicap, right, or you're disabled, but I hate using that word because it labels people in the wrong way. But she did use a wheelchair. She had kidney failure, but she had kidney issues. She had to be on dialysis, because your kidneys basically, when we were in child, like we call them like the washing machines of the body, they filter your blood. So they were not functioning properly for her. So she would have to come in for 4 hours, I don't know if it's twice a week, to the hospital. And she was a volunteer for the playroom, the main playroom in the hospital. And she loved being with the patients. She loved helping them. And now I'll never forget, some people looked at her as like a burden. And people that I worked with, they actually looked at her as like, oh my God, she's coming, she's gonna and I'm like, and it's so, oh my God, people are so ignorant. And I'm like, but my point is that it gives you such perspective, because there's people who have autoimmune disorders, and they need to have IVIG infusions, like it's immunoglobulin is what it's called, but they need to have that in order to sustain themselves. There's people who go in for chemotherapy. They have a port placed in their chest and they had to infusion. You know, there's a lot. Which my headphones I think are gonna go poopy for a second. Oh, I think they went poopy. They went bye bye. But I think if it's still. Which let me turn the fan off because it's gonna.